For over a decade, fans saw the argument, the marriages falling apart, the wives walking away. But this was different. Since 2010, viewers have watched the Brown family unravel piece by painful piece. We saw Christine walking away. We saw Janelle draw back. We saw Meri fade into the background, while Robyn quietly became the center of Kody's world. And every season, the question was always the same. How much worse can this really get? And yet, nobody expected the kids to have the answer. Madison Brush and Isabelle Brown did not walk into their confessionals as reality TV personalities. They walked in as daughters. Daughters who grew up inside the storm, who watched the cameras leave at night while the real damage stayed behind. Madison broke first. Her voice was steady at first, but you could feel the weight with every word. The kind of weight you don't get from just one bad argument, but from years of trying, waiting, hoping. She said that she's up for reconnecting with her dad, but on one condition only. He has to prove consistency. Not some grand apology filmed for the show. Not a heartfelt text sent at midnight. Not an unexpected visit right before a new season airs. Because that's the one thing she says Kody has never shown. Madison didn't say this in anger. She said it like someone who has done the work, someone who has sat in therapy, unpacking memories that should have been simple dad moments, but instead turned into emotional landmines. She shared she should seek therapy, not because of the usual life tension. She needed to do it, however, not for revenge, but to recover from her father's actions, from the remarks he uttered, from the distance he created, from the feeling of always coming second, or third, or not at all. That one detail altered everything for the fans. Therapy means it wasn't a temporary pain. It was deep. It was ongoing. It shaped the way she viewed herself and the way she trusted others. And even as Madison's words came like a wave, Isabelle's truth fell like a knife. Isabelle, the quiet soul whose on-screen coming-of-age fans have witnessed, did not cry, didn't budge, never raised her voice. When the producers asked her if she and her dad talk, she didn't hesitate. Нет, мы не часто разговариваем. 10 little words, heavy with years of silence. She was not speaking in anger. No rolling of the eyes, no dramatic sigh. Just a heartbreaking calmness, the kind that only comes when you've stopped expecting anything different. For Isabelle, this isn't a fresh disappointment. It's a reality she's lived with for such a long period that it no longer surprises her. The world watched in that instant as the paradigm shifted. This was no longer a show about plural marriage drama. This wasn't about who gets which plot of land on Coyote Pass. It wasn't even about which wife stayed and which wife left. This was about the kids, about the generation that didn't choose this lifestyle, but had to grow up in the fallout of it. As Madison fought back, tears and Isabelle calmly described a distant father-daughter relationship, fans realized something chilling. The real story of Sister Wives was never just about 4 women and 1 man struggling to make polygamy work. The real story was always simmering underneath, in the eyes of the children sitting quietly on the sidelines, children who watched their father drive away, children who overheard quarrels through thin walls, children who learned, way too early, that love in their family came with conditions, schedules, rankings, and excuses. This was when the story blew wide open, just not because TLC added more drama, but because 2 daughters finally said out loud what the audience had been feeling for years. The wives may have left Kody, but the daughters? They're the ones showing the true cost of him not truly being there. It strikes differently coming from Madison, though. She's always been the tough one, the composed one, the grounded, level-headed daughter who somehow managed to rise above the chaos she was born into. For years, fans saw her as the peacemaker, the one who tried to bridge gaps, soothe conflicts, and keep the family connected even as everything around her was falling apart. Madison was the daughter who defended her siblings, protected her mother, and held on to hope when others had already let go. But this time, she let the mask slip. Under the studio lights, sitting across from the cameras, Madison didn't come to entertain. She came to tell the truth, and when she finally did, the truth was devastating. She admitted she grew up surrounded by chaos, and not the kind of chaos that comes with a big family or normal disagreements. This was emotional chaos, the kind that leaves you constantly wondering if the people you love will stay or disappear again. The kind that forces a child to become an emotional adult long before they're ready. She acknowledged her father's public comments truly hurt her. Not just private words behind closed doors, but things he said on camera, in interviews, in moments of frustration that millions of people could hear. Words you can't take back. Words that don't go away just because the episode is over. And then came the line that shattered viewers across social media. "I just don't want to be disappointed again." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. She didn't say it in anger. She whispered it almost as if she was confessing something she had held in her chest for years. That one sentence did what hours of footage never could. It expresses deeply the emotional reality of being one of Kody Brown's daughters, because that wasn't a daughter asking for love. That was a survivor begging for stability, someone who has been through the cycle too many times. Hope, disappointment, repeat. Madison explained that every time she hoped for change, she was met with absence, every single time. When she was small, she waited at the window for her father to appear. Sometimes he did. Often, he didn't. In years to come, she learned not to expect consistency. She learned to temper her expectations so the disappointment would hurt less. She learned that love in her family was always conditional. Every promise broken. Everything good is temporary. Every attempt to reconnect, brief. She said this without any bitterness. She spoke with the heartbreak of a person who has lived many years on unfulfilled hope. A pattern instantly recognizable to viewers. It is the emotional rhythm of the physically alive but emotionally absent parent. The internet lit up with comments from people who saw their own childhood in Madison's story. "This is what it feels like, being the forgotten kid. My dad did the same thing. You stop crying after a while and just learn to expect nothing." That wasn't a TV moment. That was a real human moment. What Madison described was more than disappointment. It is trauma finally spoken out loud. Because a child doesn't go to therapy for a couple misunderstandings or a few harsh words. They go because there is one deep wound that never healed. Therapy was not optional, according to Madison. It was necessary. She needed professional help to sort through years of feeling unheard, unseen, unprotected. She needed to untangle the emotional knots left by a father who showed up when it benefited him but disappeared when she needed him most. And fans grasped something very real then. Madison is not speaking out of bitterness. She speaks from recovery. This is what healing sounds like. This is what it looks like when someone finally puts words to the pain they grew up with. She described how every one of Kody's apologies had come with the same pattern. A burst of guilt-driven emotion, a promise to do better, followed by a slow slide back into distance. Every attempt Kody made to reconcile was surface level, a moment of clarity followed by weeks or months of silence. He would show up only to disappear again, leaving Madison emotionally suspended, unsure whether to trust the change or prepare for the next heartbreak. This is why her condition for reconciliation wasn't dramatic or unreasonable. It was simple. Not gifts, not big speeches, not performative guilt, just showing up repeatedly, without fail. Because Madison has learned the hardest lesson any child can learn. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who were supposed to protect you. And yet, she loves her father. You can hear it in her voice. You can feel it when she stammers every time she attempts to speak. She wants him in her life, but not at the expense of her mental health. Fans applauded her for setting boundaries, something many adult children of emotionally unpredictable parents struggle to do. What broke Madison wasn't an explosion. It wasn't anger or rejection. It was acceptance. Acceptance that love without consistency isn't love at all. Acceptance that her well-being matters. Acceptance that it's okay to walk away from a cycle that's been hurting you for years. Madison isn't pushing her father out. She's inviting him to step up, maybe for the first time. And until he does, she is choosing herself. This isn't resentment. This isn't rebellion. This is survival. If Madison's update was a storm loud, emotional, and impossible to ignore, then Isabelle's update was the snowfall after the storm. Soft, quiet, but painfully, chillingly cold. Some heartbreak screams, she whispered. And somehow, that hurt even more. Fans watched as Isabelle sat down in her confessional chair. No crying, no trembling voice, no scripted words. Just a young woman who has lived with disappointment for so long that it no longer surprises her. It no longer upsets her. It simply exists. When producers gently asked her about her relationship with her father, she didn't even blink. "We're not close." 3 words, flat, honest, final. Not, "It's complicated." Not, "We're working on it." Not, "We're trying." Just a calm truth spoken by someone who has already stopped expecting anything different. And in those 3 words, fans felt the weight of the surgery, the moment that defined everything. They remembered the episode as if it happened yesterday. Isabelle preparing for major spinal surgery in New Jersey. Her mother Christine terrified, but staying strong. Her siblings rallying behind her. And Kody? Nowhere. He didn't show up. The man who called himself a loving father didn't get on a plane for his daughter's life-changing operation. His excuses? Restrictions, responsibilities, concerns about travel, reasons that fell apart the moment they left his mouth, because every viewer knew if he wanted to be there, he would have been. But he wasn't, and Isabelle faced one of the scariest moments of her life without the father she loved. That moment scarred fans, but it scarred Isabelle far deeper. And the most devastating part? She never lashed out. She never confronted him publicly. She never tried to humiliate him. She simply moved on. In her confessional, she explained that her mom, Christine, had to become both parents, the emotional anchor and the practical protector, the comfort and the discipline, the hug after surgery and the reassurance before it. Isabelle said it with admiration, even pride, because she knows how much Christine sacrificed to keep her children afloat. And then came the part that stung even more. David Woolley, Christine's new husband, the man who walked into the family years after the damage had already been done. Isabelle praised him openly, something she has never done lightly. She described him as present, respectful, kind, someone who doesn't try to replace her father, but still shows up in all the ways that matter. Imagine that. A man with no biological tie giving more emotional nourishment than the father who shared her DNA. For fans, this wasn't just a comparison. It was a quiet indictment. David doesn't make excuses. David doesn't disappear. David doesn't treat presence like a performance. He is simply there, unconditionally. And that consistency is something Isabelle has never known from her father. But here's what makes Session 3 truly soul-crushing. Isabelle did not speak with anger. Not once, not even for a second. There was no bitterness, no resentment, no disparity, plea for attention, just acceptance, the kind that only comes after years of hoping, and years of watching those hopes crumble. Isabelle has moved past expecting her father to change. She has stopped waiting for apologies. She has stopped imagining that one magical day he will show up and try. She is not angry, she is done hoping. And that quiet resignation is more devastating than any tear-filled breakdown ever could be. Because anger means you still care. Sadness means you still wish for something more. But acceptance? Acceptance means the chapter is already closed. For viewers, the contrast between Madison and Isabelle was striking. Madison is fighting for boundaries, fighting for a stable future, fighting for a father who wants to fix things. But Isabelle? She has laid her weapons down. Not in surrender, but in peace. She has built a life where her emotional safety does not depend on her father, where her happiness isn't tied to his presence, where her growth isn't limited by his absence. And yet, she still loves him. She said as much in a soft, heartbreaking way. It's possible to love someone and not trust them, to love someone and not let them in, to love someone and choose your own well-being over their inconsistency. Isabelle has reached that stage. What makes her update even more powerful is the maturity behind it. She didn't drag her father. She didn't expose private conversations. She didn't build sympathy by crying on camera. Instead, she told the truth quietly, which made it impossible to ignore. Fans took to social media saying, "This hurt more because she wasn't angry. That girl has healed herself in ways her father never could. The calmness in her voice broke me more than tears would have." And they're right. Silent hurt is the deepest. Quiet heartbreak is the most real. And Isabelle's calm acceptance is the loudest cry for help her father will likely never hear. Because how do you fix a relationship with someone who has already stopped waiting for you? To Isabelle, the story is no longer about reconciliation. It's about peace, about building a life where she feels supported even if the support is coming from people who were never supposed to be her real parents. She has Christine. She has David. She has siblings who love fiercely. And she has become her own source of strength. Her devastation wasn't explosive. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and complete. And that is what makes her story unforgettable. For years, Kody Brown has repeated the same lines like a broken record. I reach out. I'm misunderstood. The kids were turned against me. They don't want a relationship. He said it during interviews. He said it on camera. He said it in confessionals. He said it whenever he needed to protect his image. And for a long time, some viewers actually believed him. After all, it's easy to villainize an ex-wife. Easy to say Christine was dramatic. Easy to call Janelle stubborn. Easy to paint Meri as resentful. But now, his daughters have spoken. And when children speak, the entire narrative shatters. Madison saying, "I don't want to be disappointed again." Isabelle saying, "We're not close." These aren't scripted lines. These aren't wives venting after years of marital breakdown. These aren't emotional accusations made in the heat of an argument. These are calm, honest testimonies straight from the children who lived through it. This isn't a wife complaining. This isn't a divorce talking. This is his own blood saying, he wasn't there. He didn't show up. We learned to live without him. Nothing hits harder than the child of a man publicly calling him out, not with anger, but with truth. And when these episodes aired, social media blew up. TikTok creators stopped mid-sentence as their comment sections filled with heartbreak. Analysis, quotes, timelines, receipts flooded the threads of Reddit. Twitter became an arena of live commentary flooded with, "This is the real story. Kody can't spin this anymore. It was all along the truth by the wives." Because suddenly, it all made sense. The distance, the partiality, the excuses, the emotional incongruity. Fans realized this was not a one-time aberration. It wasn't about a bad year. It wasn't over COVID restrictions or wives poisoning minds or misunderstandings. This was a pattern. It was long-term, deeply ingrained. A pattern of appearing only when that benefited him. A pattern of favoritism toward one household while the others perished. A pattern of blaming everyone else for choices he made. And now, there is nowhere left for Kody to hide. Every time he insisted, "I reach out," viewers now replay Madison's trembling voice, saying she had to go to therapy because of him. Every time he said, "They don't want me," fans hear Isabelle's quiet, "We're not close," and remember the surgery he missed. Every time he said, "They turned the kids against me," fans remember that these daughters didn't speak with anger, they spoke with acceptance. The kind of acceptance that comes after years of disappointment. Kody's story was based on the belief that he was the victim, misunderstood, rejected, shut out. But testimonies by his daughters themselves tore the victim card to pieces in seconds. Because it is impossible to watch Madison's pain or hear Isabelle's resignation and still believe Kody's version of events. This is not something the wives exaggerated. This isn't something the producers edited. This is not something the public misunderstood. This is the next generation telling the truth the parents were too exhausted to keep repeating. And viewers noticed something else too. Kody's reactions have always been defensive. Called out, he gets loud. Whenever confronted, he blames somebody else. He fabricates the story when exposed. But with Madison and Isabelle's confessions, he has nothing to push against. He is able to debate Christine. He can debate with Janelle. He can take down Meri. He will weep with Robyn. But he cannot argue with the daughters who grew up waiting for him to show up only to realize he wouldn't. And fans are no longer confused. They've connected the dots. Madison's therapy, Isabelle's silent distance, Garrison's sadness before he died, Leon cutting ties altogether, Gwendolyn speaking out. This is no coincidence. This is not miscommunication. This isn't wives turning kids against their father. This is the emotional aftermath of years of neglect finally surfacing. Every platform, every comment section, every discussion board reflects the same thing. Kody is finally being held accountable. The kids corroborated everything. There's no coming back from this. For once your children speak the truth, once they show the versions of you which the cameras didn't see, once they take off the last layer of protection, this is the story you have been telling yourself for years, and suddenly it comes crashing down. And now Kody Brown is standing inside the ruins of his own storytelling, unable to deny, unable to blame, unable to spin. For the first time in Sister Wives history, the wives aren't telling the truth. It's coming from the kids, and the truth leaves nowhere left to hide. The Sister Wives world is now standing at a crossroads, one it never expected to reach, and one that feels heavier than every divorce, every argument, and every dramatic season finale that came before. Because for the first time in this series, children have spoken. Not the wives, not the ex-wives, not frustrated partners trying to fix a broken marriage. This time, the truth came from the generation that never chose this lifestyle but paid the highest emotional price for it. And so the question echoing across social media, across fan forums, across living rooms as viewers finish the episode is simple but terrifying. Can these relationships ever be fixed? Madison says maybe. But her maybe is not hopeful. It's conditional. Very conditional. In her case, reconciliation isn't about apology. It isn't about emotional speeches. It isn't about dramatic scenes filmed for the cameras. It's about one thing, a word Kody has never lived by. If he wants a relationship with her, he must prove for the first time in his life that he can show up repeatedly. With time, no excuses, without vanishing, without falling back into old patterns. Madison's door is only open a crack. and she's the one holding the frame, ready to close it again the second she feels that old, familiar sting of disappointment. Isabelle's feet, on the other hand, are standing in a different place altogether. She's not asking for change. She is not waiting on it. She isn't expecting it. Isabelle's heart has already adjusted to the reality she grew up with a father who wasn't there when she needed him most, and who remained distant long after the moment passed. And she accepts rather quietly, but devastating. For her, the idea of reconciliation isn't impossible. It's simply not needed. She's built a life that doesn't depend on her father's presence emotionally or otherwise, and that, in itself, speaks volume. But the impact of Madison and Isabelle's updates extends far beyond their individual relationships with their father. Their testimonies, in themselves, have done something no one else could. They reaffirmed their mothers. Christine and Janelle spent years trying to explain the emotional struggles their children faced. They tried to tell Kody. They tried to warn him. They tried to show him how his choices were affecting the kids. But Kody dismissed them, called it exaggeration, called them melodramatic, accused them of poisoning the kids against him. He rewrote the story for years, until he did believe his version of it. But now, their daughters have confirmed every word they tried to say. Madison's pine validates Janelle's quiet heartbreak. Isabelle's distance validates Christine's years of frustration. The daughters didn't speak up because they were loyal to their mothers. They spoke out of lived experience, and the confirmation has totally flipped out the entire emotional balance of the show. This moment will define season 20 for the viewers. It's the turning point not because of a dramatic fight or a shocking confession, but because the emotional truth finally rose to the surface. This isn't about polygamy anymore. Polygamy was only the stage. This isn't about property disputes. That was merely the plot device. This isn't even about the wives fighting or leaving. That was just the build-up. This new chapter is about something much deeper, something much harder to watch. The truth, finally from the children's lips, and forcing the world to see the damage that was always there, buried under years of denial and deflection. For over a decade, the wives carried the weight of trying to hold the family together. They tried to shield their kids from the emotional fallout. They tried to soften the blows. They tried to be both shields and anchors. But now the daughters have taken the microphone, and their voices are now changing everything. Because when a spouse tells you someone wasn't present, people question motives. Whenever a child tells you that someone wasn't present, people believe it instantly. There is no spin powerful enough to erase the quiet heartbreak in Isabelle's voice. There is no explanation strong enough to counter the therapy Madison needed to heal from her father's choices. These daughters didn't expose a moment. They revealed a trend, a years-long pattern of emotional neglect, selective parenting, and broken promises that now lies bare in front of millions. And that is why the world of Sister Wives will never be the same. Because this is no longer just a storyline. It's a reckoning, coming to terms with the truth, a confrontation with the hurt, a reckoning with the legacy one man's choices created across multiple households and multiple generations. Season 20 isn't ending a chapter, it's redefining the whole story.